What most people never understand about empaths is this. They think the problem is social skill. They believe if an empath has only a few friends, or no friends at all, it must mean they don't know how to connect with people. But that belief is not just wrong, it is completely backwards. Empaths do not struggle with connection. In many cases, they understand people on a level most never reach. They notice tone. They catch tiny facial reactions. They feel the gap between what someone says and what they truly feel. They don't only hear words, they sense what is hidden. They notice what is avoided. They feel what was never spoken. And once someone can see beneath the surface again and again, something surprising begins to happen. Normal social life starts to feel strange. Small talk does not only feel boring to an empath, it feels empty, like standing in a room where everyone agreed to stay shallow while pretending depth does not exist. Conversations become predictable. Reactions feel practiced. Smiles feel forced. Energy feels fake. And slowly, a quiet distance begins to grow inside them. Then comes the silent choice. Do they keep joining shallow conversations just to stay socially busy? Or do they step back and wait for something real? Most choose to step back, and this is where people misunderstand everything. From the outside, it looks like withdrawal, it looks like isolation, it looks like loneliness. But inside, it is none of those things. It is discernment. Empaths are not searching for more conversations. They are searching for honest ones. They are not trying to be surrounded. They are trying to be understood. And once they realize how rare true understanding is, their standards naturally rise. This is when their social circle becomes smaller, not because people reject them, because they quietly walk away from what feels false. They stop forcing laughter. They stop pretending interest. They stop giving energy to empty dynamics. And here is the truth most never notice. This is not loss, it is filtration. The empath is not becoming less social. They are becoming more precise, more intentional, more connected to what truly fulfills them instead of what only wastes time. But that precision has a price. Depth is rare. Real emotional presence is rare. People who are comfortable being fully seen and who can truly see others in return are rare. So when an empath raises their standard for connection, the number of people who can meet them there becomes very small. And deep down, they know it. They understand that choosing depth often means choosing solitude more than others ever would. But to them, that trade feels worth it, because being alone feels lighter than being surrounded by people who never truly see you. So they become comfortable in their own space, not because they don't value relationships, because they value real relationships too much to accept less. And when you understand this, everything changes. The question is no longer, why don't they have more friends? The real question becomes, how many people are truly capable of meeting them where they live? Because when someone is built for depth, surface connection does not only feel weak, it feels dishonest. Most people would rather have company than truth. An empath would rather have truth than company. But what comes next is even more shocking. When people say empaths absorb energy, it may sound mysterious, but there is something very real behind it. Empaths are deeply sensitive to emotional states. Their body reacts quickly to the moods around them, a change in tone, tension in someone's posture, fast breathing, hidden frustration, silent anger. These things are not just noticed, they are felt. And when an empath spends time near anxious, manipulative, negative, or chaotic people, their own body can begin mirroring that emotional state. Without even trying, this is where social life becomes expensive. An empath can spend 1 hour with the wrong person and leave feeling completely drained, not normal tired, something deeper, like energy was taken instead of shared. At first, they may not understand why. They may blame stress. They may call themselves introverted. But after seeing the same pattern again and again, the truth becomes clear. It is not people that drain them. It is the emotional weight those people carry. And here is where it gets even deeper. Most people regulate their emotions from inside. Empaths often regulate in response to the environment. So if they are surrounded by tension, they feel it. If they are near negativity, they process it. If someone hides anger behind a smile, they sense the mismatch. And their system works hard to balance it, silently, constantly, invisible effort. Now imagine doing that for years, across friendships, relationships, family, workplaces. Eventually, something inside begins to push back. They start saying no. They decline invitations. They shorten conversations. They become selective about where they go, who they meet, and how long they stay. Not because they hate people, because they finally understand the cost. Others may call it avoidance, distance, coldness. But it is none of those things. It is calibration. The empath is protecting their peace, because once you realize certain people repeatedly disturb your inner state, continuing to stay there is not kindness. It is self-neglect. And mature empaths stop neglecting themselves. They stop asking, how do I keep this relationship? They start asking, what does this relationship cost me? And that question changes everything. Most people judge relationships by history, by obligation, by habit, by proximity. Empaths judge by impact. How do I feel during this interaction? How do I feel after it? Is there balance here? Or am I always the one carrying the emotional weight? And when the answer keeps becoming one-sided, they do not fight. They adjust. That is why their circle becomes smaller but stronger. Fewer people, less chaos, more peace, more clarity. They are not trying to collect people. They are protecting equilibrium. And once they meet someone calm, grounded, honest, and emotionally steady, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Their standards rise forever. Their tolerance for draining people drops to almost zero. So what looks like distance is refinement. What looks like isolation is control. The empath is not running from people. They are removing unnecessary interference, because the truth is simple. If someone repeatedly leaves you feeling worse than before, that is not connection, that is consumption. And if you follow this pattern far enough, you begin to discover a third factor, the one almost nobody sees coming. And this next truth is even deeper. It is less about how empaths are born, and more about what life teaches them. Because the real reason many empaths become selective is not only that they feel deeply or sense energy, it is because, over time, they learn what happens when those gifts are placed in the wrong hands. Empaths often carry a high level of tolerance. They give people second chances, then third chances. They excuse behavior. They search for reasons. They look for hidden pain. They try to understand why someone acted badly instead of only judging what happened. By itself, this is not weakness. It is emotional intelligence. It is advanced awareness. But in the real world, that gift is often misused. Because when you understand people more than they understand themselves, you become easy to overlook. Your patience becomes expected. Your kindness becomes normal. Your boundaries become flexible. And your habit of staying, even when something feels wrong, creates a silent imbalance. Others begin to rely on it, sometimes knowingly, sometimes without realizing it. So the empath gives more. They listen longer. They forgive faster. They carry emotional weight that was never theirs. Yet they pick it up anyway because they can. And for a while, everything looks fine. The relationship continues. The friendship survives. The connection appears stable. But beneath the surface, something dangerous is growing. One person is investing energy. The other is consuming it. And here is where everything begins to change. Because repetition creates clarity. The empath starts noticing patterns, not one mistake, not one bad day. Patterns. They notice certain people only return when they need something. They notice apologies that never become change. They notice their understanding is not appreciated. It is depended on. This is the turning point. Because now they have enough evidence to choose differently. The only question is, will they? Some do not. Not at first. They stay longer than they should. They hope love will heal it. They hope insight will transform it. They hope patience will fix it. But slowly, even hope begins to fade. Not because they become bitter, because they become accurate. They realize something powerful. Understanding someone does not mean tolerating them. And once that lesson becomes clear, everything shifts fast. They stop over-explaining. They stop defending other people's bad behavior. They stop trying to control outcomes that were never theirs to control. And most importantly, they stop giving where nothing is being returned. This is usually when people around them become confused. The empath who was always available, always patient, always accommodating, suddenly is not. But this is not a personality change. It is a boundary correction. They did not become cold. They became clear. They are no longer responding automatically. They are responding selectively. And that one shift shakes every relationship built on their overgiving. Some connections collapse at this stage, not because the empath did anything wrong, because the connection was never balanced to begin with. It survived only because they were carrying more than their share. Once they stop carrying it, the structure falls. This is why their circle can shrink so suddenly, because when you stop overgiving, you also stop fitting into relationships that depended on it. And there are more of those than most people realize. But here is the truth that matters most. This is not loss, it is exposure. It reveals which relationships were real and which were conditional. For the empath, that clarity is worth everything. Because once you have lived through patterns of being used, misunderstood, emotionally drained, you never forget it. You integrate it. You become harder to manipulate, harder to access without intention, far more aware of where your energy goes and why. So when you see an empath with only a few people around them, do not assume they failed at relationships. You may be looking at someone who learned, through pain and repetition, which relationships were never real at all. And the lesson they learned is simple, but life-changing. Empathy without boundaries is not kindness, it is self-abandonment. Now, if you connect everything we have discussed, depth over surface, sensitivity to energy, the lessons of overgiving, it all leads to one final transformation. And this is where empaths separate from the majority. At some point, they stop asking, "How do I keep connection?" and start asking, "What kind of life actually feels right to live?" That question changes everything. Because many people live for approval. They stay in conversations they dislike, relationships that drain them, environments that exhaust them, all just to feel accepted. A silent trade is being made, authenticity exchanged for belonging. Empaths begin to notice that trade, and then they reject it. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, deliberately. They start seeing that every time they ignore their inner signals, every time they tolerate chaos, noise, fake energy, superficial people, their peace starts to fade, and eventually that cost becomes impossible to ignore. So they make a choice many avoid for years. They choose inner alignment over outer approval, and this is where their life starts to look different. They spend more time alone, but it does not feel empty. It feels clear. Without constant outside noise, their thoughts settle, their emotions calm, their awareness sharpens. They stop changing themselves to fit the room. Instead, they let the room reveal whether it fits them. That is power. That is reversal. And once that happens, the need to be liked loses control. Not because they no longer care, because they found something more valuable than approval, coherence, the peace of no longer living against yourself, the feeling that your inner world and outer life finally match. Most people rarely experience that. From the outside, others may misunderstand it. They may call the empath distant, detached, arrogant, but those judgments often come from people still trapped in the approval game. To them, choosing peace over participation makes no sense. But to the empath, it is no longer a question. They have already tested the other path. They have lived in loud rooms, empty conversations, habit-based relationships, and they saw the result. More confusion, more exhaustion, more inner conflict. So now, they simplify. They reduce unnecessary interaction. They become highly selective about who enters their space, not from fear, from self-respect. They choose calm environments, grounded people, honest energy, and something surprising happens. Their relationships become fewer, but stronger. Less performance, less drama, less misunderstanding, more truth, more stability. The people who remain are there by alignment, not obligation. There is silence without awkwardness, honesty without punishment, peace without pretending. That becomes the new standard. And once that standard is felt, there is no desire to go backward, because the empath learns something many spend years avoiding. Being surrounded by the wrong people can hurt far more than being alone. One pain is obvious and temporary, the other is quiet and constant. so they choose carefully, not perfectly, consciously. That is the difference. Their life is no longer built around reacting to whatever appears. It is built around responding only to what aligns. Every person, every room, every relationship, every environment, all pass through one question. Does this protect my peace or disturb it? If it disturbs it, it does not stay. And that is why their circle looks the way it does. It is not empty. It is refined. Because in the end, the empath is not searching for more people. They are protecting something far more valuable, their state of mind. And once you understand the worth of that, you stop chasing connection and start choosing it.